My name is Paul Winkle with NetApp. In this short video, I'm going to demonstrate leveraging NetApp SnapCenter along with NetApp cloning technologies to take an environment where two Oracle databases share the same ASM disk group and use SnapCenter NetApp's cloning technologies to split off those databases into their own disk groups without the need of data movement. There will be a small amount of downtime required for the database that is being moved. In this demonstration, ASM DB1 is the database that is staying in the shared disk group. We are going to perform a clone, at which time we will split off the new clone disk group where ASM DB2 will reside. So before we begin the process of backing up and cloning the environment, we are going to need to shut down ASM DB2 to make sure that the database is in a consistent state. So let's go shut down the database. Next, we will apply a protection or a backup policy against the database we're cloning ASM DB1, with the next step being performing of a backup. Okay, this is the commands that will run a backup, applying the protection policy we just assigned and asking to wait for completion. Now that the backup is complete, we're going to begin the process of creating the clone. With the first command is creating the XML specification file that will define all the attributes of the clone. As by default, SnapCenter does not appropriately name the disk group in the way that we want it to be named, we are going to have to change in the specification file to the target name of the new disk group. So we will use sed to change it to the appropriate name. Now we can begin the cloning process. We are going to drag in another window so we can keep an eye on the disk group cloning process to see when that is complete. So at this point, as you can see, we only have 4 disk groups presented to the host. EA ASM Data 1 is the one we are now cloning, and we will have an EA ASM Data 2 here shortly. After a brief period of time, we can see that the EA ASM Data 2 disk group has showed up. It is there, and there it is as well. The cloning process should be complete shortly. So the clone has successfully completed. Now, what our next step would be is to bring up the database that we are targeting for move, and that is ASM DB2. We are going to want to mount the database. First of all, let's look at the files. There is a rename dbfiles.sql, which is the file we're going to use to move the data files from data 1 to data 2, and that's just renaming them. The file's already there as we clone the disk group. So let's switch to ASM DB2. And let's bring the database into mount mode. Now the database has been mounted, we can rename the files and bring the database up. So the database has successfully been cloned over to data 2. As you'll notice, we now have a additional SID ASMDBT. This was the conduit for our clone. We're going to go ahead and delete and remove that database. So we're going to shut it down. we can shut down a board as we're not going to need this database. Now that we've shut down that database, the next step will be we're going to initiate the split. So let's run the command to generate the split. As you could see, I accidentally ran it incorrectly the first time. I put in a wrong parameter. And yes, we understand it may take a long time. Now this split happens entirely in the background and is non-disruptive and transparent to the end users. And you can run a command to demonstrate the current status of the split operation. In addition to running a SnapCenter command, you can log into the cluster shell on the storage and use volclone split status and the vserver name to see what the current status of the clone split operation is. In this case here, it says it's 35% complete. Once the split is complete, as it is here, you can rename the volume and remove the base snapshot that contains the older data. If you don't remove the snapshot before you clean up the database that shouldn't have moved, ASM DB1, it will lock that space within a snapshot. So make sure you delete the snapshot and clean up the space before you take your initial backup. So using the vol rename command, we can go ahead and rename the volume. Once that's complete, we can delete the snapshot that is not needed. We'll use the snaplist command to get the snapshot we're going to be deleting, and then we'll use the snap delete command to delete the snap. So we're going to delete that snapshot. And once it's deleted, now we can go clean up the host. So change to the grid user. Use ASM command to remove the temporary directory created for redo logs and control files. Make sure that you're removing the correct folder, and that is of DB1 and DBT. And as we'll see, we have EA data 1, data 2. And if we want to look at just what directories are in data 2 and what directories are in data 1, we'll still see that we have DB2 in 1, but we can now at this point get rid of it as we are no longer using it. I would recommend leaving it there for a small period of time just in case you have some issues and you need to run through a recovery. But at this point now within SnapCenter, you're going to want to configure backups for the database now that resides in the new disk group. So you go and define a protection policy for ASM DB2 and perform a backup. That's the end of this video. Thank you.